me see. Flip this. Good morning. Zachariah Jackson, Basa News, up here in East Orange, New Jersey. We're doing an interview with Dennis Porter. And can you introduce your organization?
Well, as Zachariah mentioned, my name is Dennis Porter. I'm the founder and chief operating officer of Prodigal Sons and Daughters Redirection Services.
Okay, but this segment of it is dealing with celebrities in crisis. Is that correct?
Celebrities at risk.
At risk. Oh, too far from what it is. Let me ask you this right here. You know, how long have you guys reached out to any celebrities at this point?
Yes, we've been in contact with celebrities now for a couple of years now. Groups like Blue Magic,
Okay.
Ray Goodman and Brown,
Okay, yeah.
Stylistics,
Mm-hmm.
Sky, Soul Generation. These are the older groups that we began with, particularly because of our familiarity with that era.
Okay. Okay.
However, we know that the need in terms of celebrities being at risk cross all generations.
Wow. Wow. Well, you know, it is April 26th, and yesterday they had the funeral for DMX at the Barclay. I didn't make it. Wish I could have. How could your program have helped a person like DMX that was extremely talented, but may harbor a good deal of nervous energy?
You know, I came to be a fan of DMX back in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting because his style of music, I always thought he might be at risk anyway because of the style of music and what it demands of a person.
When you say the style of music, you mean rapping in general, or just the
the
lyrics?
I think he was, I think it was the lyrics. I think he was just so straight up, hardcore with it, until sometimes that attracts people that don't like you, you know. But I was very happy to see him survive all of that. I think the most difficult part for him was fame in itself. You know, oftentimes that is for urban kids.
Mm-hmm.
Who suddenly go from obscurity, and the things that they sing about is about being respected and
Sure.
accepted and all those things, and then all of a sudden you got the whole world paying attention to you, and before you know it, you pretty much transcend the old concerns, and now pretty much you have to worry about the trappings of fame. But as far as DMX is concerned, what we could have done in his case was every celebrity case that I've seen is different.
Mm-hmm.
And when I watched DMX for years, especially in the last years when he was going through a lot of struggle, and he became more religious, I think the thing that struck me was that he really didn't seem to know exactly where he fitted.
Where you fit in?
Huh?
Where you fit in?
Yeah.
Okay.
It seemed as if society wanted him to stay the guy that he was.
Sure.
And but he was having a rough time trying to maintain that. And so I think the thing that we probably would have been more interested in was, I saw him do an interview on Ayanla Van Zandt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ayana Ranson, something like that.
Yeah. And it was not a very good interview with him and her. And I wasn't surprised by that. He wasn't ready at that time. And I remember thinking when I was watching him, you know, this young man, they got to understand that you have to tailor. If your mission is to really save him,
Sure.
then you have to take into consideration what's interesting to him. And whereas she was trying to correct him about what he needed to do, that was probably correct in what she was telling him, but the approach, in order to get a young man like that who's not exactly sure about what his direction is for the future, you have to try to offer some incentive that he is interested in.
Okay.
Now, in our business, we know that sometimes you can't save a celebrity. Sometimes they are in such a state of confusion that they haven't really figured out that they have kind of reached their end in terms of the way that they were living before. In other cases, the celebrity does not even see at all that they are in need of help or that they're in crisis. And in DMX's case, I think he realized he was, but I still think he was having a very difficult time figuring out who he was. And I think the work would have been that we wouldn't have been able to play too close up on him, because when they are not ready or they don't identify you as somebody who is truly there to help them, then you will get resistance from them. So I guess the first thing that we would have been working on is to build trust. Like, how do we build trust with this young man? And we would have worked on that for years. We would have worked for years on developing that trust with him. I made on social media over a year ago, someone reposted it, and it was interesting because I'd forgotten. I had made a request that if there was anyone who knew how I could reach DMX. And I'd totally forgotten about that. And someone reposted my actual post after he died. And I said, wow. I forgot I even asked that question. So that's what I see basically with him. I think more than anything, what we are setting up is what they really need. And that is, we are setting up facilities from here to Florida, or celebrity safe havens, beautiful properties that they could be in these properties and have the full attention that they need. But what has to happen with us, as opposed to everything else, is they have to get this sense that whoever these people are, they truly do exist to help me. Not that they try to make no profit off of me, not that...
That's going to be hard to get by, though.
No, it hasn't been. It hasn't been. It hasn't because a lot of these celebrities now are no longer in the spotlight like they were at one time. So when you come to them and you tell them about this idea, surprisingly for me, it shouldn't have been surprising though, a lot of them tell you, you know, man, we've been talking about this very concept that you got for years. We hear this from all the groups. Like, we just could not figure out how to organize it. We couldn't figure out how to put it together.
Now, when you say hear from the groups, are you talking about groups like the Blue Magic and people like that? But I'm talking about more so, you know, it's two different categories of groups. Like, all right, like a DMX, I wouldn't put him with a Blue Magic.
Yeah,
because he's a different era.
It doesn't matter, like, though, when it comes to where fame takes you. It takes them to the same places.
Sure.
And it's a rise first, and then there's a plateau, and then there's a descent. you know, or sometimes a fall.
Mm-hmm.
And they all hit it.
Sure.
So based on that, there, when you begin to point out to them the first mistakes that you make coming into the entertainment industry is your management
Mm-hmm.
and contracts.
Mm-hmm.
First mistakes that you make, all of them make those mistakes.
Okay.
And then after they do that, relationships. They fame sometimes creates relationships that are unhealthy,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes it destroys relationships that were healthy.
That's right. That's right.
Right?
That's right.
Okay. Also, fame and fortune also reshapes the way that a person sees themselves and the world around them. Money makes a person sometimes express themselves in ways that they couldn't when they didn't have
Got
money.
money. Yes, sir.
You
Yes,
know?
sir. Yes, sir. That right there.
Right. So because of all of those things, it's pretty much the same route.
Mm-hmm.
And the industry, by and large, has not failed to abuse particularly every generation of black artists that has ever did business with them. So it's really not a difference. When you look at someone like Kanye West,
Sure.
who you would think a couple of years ago was at the top of his game.
Mm-hmm.
And because Kanye did not know how to use the platform to express his disapprovals of certain things, because he went about it in a manner that was erratic, and because you got to understand the people that you're coming at with this, that has to be very calculated, well thought out, and in some cases you have to keep to yourself what you're thinking until such time
Sure.
as you get in a position to change things.
Yeah, he was on a spiral for a minute Kanye West in many ways that upset a lot of people and some of the stuff that he was saying. And then,
Yeah, and some of what he was saying was true. Some of what he was saying about the monopoly of the radio stations.
but they didn't hear that. They heard the other stuff.
Well, yeah, but that's my job to point out what he did say. See, that's the media's. That's that whole program with these conglomerates of media that decide what they want us to focus on. They want us to focus on, oh, well, you know, he should have said this. Man, why not?
Well, when he said that the black Americans wanted to be slaves, I thought that was
that was
far-fetched from the other stuff. You understand what I mean?
Yeah, that sounds like
that right there was something.
Well, that's mental health.
That was crazy, to say something like that on the world stage that he had. But the other stuff, it is what it is, like the business aspect, which I don't know anything about. But let me ask you this right here. Is there a loneliness that sometimes grow with the success of the artist?
Absolutely.
And how would your organization deal with that loneliness?
Well, first of all, the loneliness comes from the fact that the way that fame comes on a person, it makes the person feel invincible. And when things are working their way, they are able to be as egotistical as possible. And for a long time, everybody around them, because they want to be a part of that, go along with it. Unless you got somebody like a good woman or a good man with you that is going to tell you the truth regardless. Now, when that starts to work against you, then what begins to happen from that point on is you begin to ostracize people from you.
Sure.
And with ostracizing people from you, the next thing that's going to happen is you're going to eventually find yourself alone if you don't dig it yourself and check yourself you will find yourself alone. But it's that whole mentality at first that tells you you don't need anybody. Now, how do we deal with that? Again, it's just one of those things that it really comes down to the artist recognizing, if we can't get them to do it, that you have to make some changes here, that the way you're doing things is not working.
Sure.
You
sure.
know, once they, if they're open to that, which is the key in all of this, this here is no different. Fame as an intoxication or an addiction is no different than alcohol, drugs, or any other addiction that you have. Muhammad Ali is quoted to have said, fame can be intoxicating. You know, he spoke about himself, how intoxicating fame is. It is. I can see that.
But although we're sitting on the outside looking in, and we're talking about fame with a lot of artists and things of that nature, and which is probably true, a lot of the stuff that you say, but at the same time, this is their job.
Well,
you understand, like this right here is my job, so you understand when I'm interviewing you know,
but your job,
this is their job.
Yeah, but that is not to say that your job doesn't demand things of you that can have some very negative side effects to it. You know, the industry has to immortalize almost these individuals when they come on the set. They package them to be perfect. They make them,
because they're trying to sell a product.
They're selling the product.
Okay.
And that's what's important to them totally. They maximize they maximize that product,
mm-hmm.
and then after they they ride that horse as far as they can.
That's right.
And then after that horse starts saying, hey, wait a minute now, y'all ride my back a lot, I think I should get more. That's when the industry starts separating themselves from that individual, because the individual's real personality is starting to come out as a human being.
Sure.
And that person now wants to be treated like a human being. And sometimes that means they become aware of the kind of money that's being handled in their name. Sometimes they come to the realization that they have been totally duped, that they are making tons of money for the company and they aren't receiving that money.
Okay.
So these are the things that make that fame, that it doesn't justify that it's going to be a positive outcome for the artist. It's not for the artist. It's a very difficult time when you begin to realize that now that they rode you as far as they can, they begin to pull back, and you find yourself now, the same people you used to pick up the phone and get on the phone, the top executives, now you can't get nobody.
Because you're no longer that star.
Yeah, and you no longer...
And chasing the next star.
Yeah, and you're no longer oblivious to what's going on. Soon as you become aware of what's going on, you get to questioning the status quo. Then they say, oh no, see, no, we don't want to talk like that. We don't want to be a part of that conversation. So a lot of them go through that. Now, the real question to me is, the industry has seen over and over again these artists, every generation, go through that same pattern.
Okay.
Right? I mean, we've lost many of them because they couldn't handle fame. Why doesn't the industry feel responsible to set up counseling and treatment for these individuals and make that a part or a division right within their record companies? You
like a social service in the record company.
Yeah, you have an opportunity that your artists, to make sure that they understand how to deal with fame. Look, if we were talking about alcohol or cigarettes or something like that, there would be a disclaimer somewhere.
Sure.
Well, it should be somewhere, like the book Uncle Yaya says, where there's a disclaimer that says fame has always been two-faced, exalting and debasing at the same time, as an example. At least it's saying to you, now there's two sides to this. So now we need to educate you right now as you're starting. The companies are not interested in that.
But that book that you mentioned, Uncle Yaya, also says, I believe somewhere, that don't, how did they put it in that book? Don't be greedy and nothing will swallow you up.
That's right. That is
I heard
exactly
that in
what
that
it
book
says.
also.
That's right.
Is it a correct quote?
That's right. That's
Okay.
the side.
So then, at some point, you know, do the artist take any blame for his behavior? I mean, can we put it, because the industry is to sell records. It's to sell records and keep the industry going.
Well,
So
let's be,
someone is winning.
well, let's be clear. Let's be clear that the example of the industry has shown us that that's true. That their primary concern
It's to sell records.
is to, that's right.
That's right. So
Right?
you're like a vehicle.
Yeah, that's it. That's absolutely true. That's their primary concern. So where you quoted Uncle Yaya there, where don't be greedy and nothing will swallow you up. That is true. But the question is, does this individual have the necessary skills to know how not to be greedy when you're talking about handling something that you've never encountered before? You take an artist like Beyonce, who is on the top of the game. This woman gets so many offers to make money that you have to wonder to yourself, what does a person do with that much money? Now, she doesn't demonstrate greed openly, but occasionally they flaunt it, you know, they buy expensive things and gifts for one another and the whole nine. But that comes from her being surrounded by people. Her parents were the ones that understood the business coming in. One of the things that we set up in Celebrities at Risk is called Fame School 101. Fame School 101 is a conference that is national, that is being set up for the future, where local celebrities in every major town we go to will be on stage sharing their experience, the ups and downs of fame. And we'll be showing you, even we'll have lawyers there, who will be lawyers, agents, the whole nine, who will be showing you on a screen how one word in a contract could tie you up with a record label for the rest of your life, and you didn't even realize that that one word meant that you were completely owned by this record company. Now, from what I heard, that was part of Kanye's contract, and that for the rest of his life, anything that he produces, they will forever have a piece of it.
Wow.
So if this is the thing that's going on, the question is, how is it in this late time when, you know, we heard about this when we were talking about artists back in the 40s, 30s, 20s. We knew about this. How is it now, in the new millennium, they are still getting away with taking these young kids and literally robbing them and enslaving them in a contract? Now, if this kid is not equipped to negotiate that, it's because a lot of times fame is associated with a certain record label or it's just a certain record company. And people think sometimes, the artists think, that just being on a label is a sign of making it, that I made it. But we're in a time now, truthfully, that if you were thinking right, you no longer need the record companies for what you once needed a record company for.
Okay.
You can now, through the power of computers, produce the music, upload the music, market the music to the entire world, own all of your publishing rights,
Okay.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Set up your sales and distribution, and collect all of it yourself. But because artists want to become famous more than they want to be business people,
Okay.
they want to be able to latch on so that they can say, I'm taken care of now. I just signed a $30 million contract.
That's a lot of money.
Without them understanding that you don't actually have $30 million.
But do you think any artist would sit down and say, you know, what is going to be my net pay of this whole thing? What am I getting out of this 30 million?
I think some do, but
And
it's
then-
just not
and
enough
then-
of them.
And then when they say that, they opt out and say, well, you know, that's good because considering where I come from, or if I had to get a job, I would probably be a laborer, you know, hard-working person. That, you know, I got national fame, I got, you know, let's say out of 30 million, if I get out of 30 million, I get 12 million, and, you know, should I be happy with that, or
Well, you might not, you can rest assured that if the whole pot is 30 million, you ain't gonna get 12. If you got 12, then they got billions.
Mhm. But is that the game, though? Is that the game? Is it the game that, okay, if I come and fix your house, I do brickwork on the side. So if I do your brick, do your walkway, I say, give me $1,000. Then you go sell a house with that walkway I did, and you sell it, let's say, 300,000. Should I worry about what you sold it for, or should I just do it for the work, the money that I?
Of course, you should worry about what it's sold for.
Why?
Because there is an industry standard in place that an artist, if he knows what he's doing or she knows what she's doing, they are able to negotiate for whatever they can determine the value is of what they are offering. And if they just go along with the price that's offered to them, then that's what they get.
Sure.
Right? But if you're wise to what's going on, then you start setting your own ground. We know that Muhammad Ali, again, as an example, when he was about to fight, who was it? Was it George Foreman? Or it might have been Frazier or somebody. They didn't want to pay him what he wanted. He was the first $1 million fight.
Yeah, right.
And they told him that they weren't going to pay him nothing. We're not going to give you nothing for that. We're going to shut you down. Ali said, all right, bet. They ended up calling Ali back and telling him, okay, you got it. Well, that was because that's what he had to do. He recognized the position he was in.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is, without a Fame School 101 conference, where young people are sitting there in that conference with their parents who also need to be educated as your child is rising to this industry. Because your parents, if the parents are focused enough, you can, in many ways, prepare them in a lot of ways to negotiate and protect their child's future. This is the part the industry would not want to see happen. But this is all the more another reason why Celebrities at Risk exists. It is also to open up the way for a lot of these artists to begin to exercise other means of creating their own fame and stop believing that they have to go through these established entities in order for them to be legitimate. You don't have to do that.
But let me interject this here. You know, listening to you, and this is not the first time we talked about celebrities at risk.
Right.
But from the outside looking in, I would say that your organization would, in a way, best serve those that's just starting out. That you have, what you're talking here, to me sounds like your organization bred a new mind. And that mind, I believe, just from the outside looking in, because I don't know much about that, celebrities and what they do with contracts, that you guys would be better getting a celebrity, getting an artist, and working with him from the cradle on up.
That is part of it.
That's part of it right there.
Yeah, that is
okay,
part
so you would probably have a lot more success with that than to after I came over the hill, you know, after I carried the mountain over the hill to join up. You understand? You understand my point? When I'm
Sure, I absolutely get it. You know, Frederick Douglass is famously quoted as saying, "It is easier to build strong children than to repair broken men."
Yes, Lord. Yes,
You know?
it's hard. Yeah.
Most societies would rather take the chance with saving a youth than trying to repair an old person, or a person fixed in their ways.
Sure.
But it doesn't change the fact that you would still leave that population underserved. When you think that a lot of artists have the opportunity to file for joint class action suits against record companies, when you think about artists never receiving royalties they should have gotten.
Sure.
When you think about some of those artists are suffering now, not only because they fought the industry and its good lawyers and lost, or were delayed to the extent where they could not afford to come back up in a court to fight against these big companies. When you think about the health of these individuals now, and how you got artists from that era who are in their 80s still performing because they have to, and the majority of the money is still going to promoters and managers and not the guys performing. Do you just leave that? No, you can't leave that. What you can do is a lot of them, the artists, never understood the business side of all of this.
Yes.
And because they didn't, a lot of them are responsible in a lot of ways for being careless. And when they were making the money, not putting the money away for a future day when they would need to have it to fall back on. And because they failed to do all of those things, and so many of them, they were just like these young kids now. They were young, they were happy to somebody's paid them attention, and they were so excited about it that, you know, even groups like New Edition and TLC and Mary J. Blige and Tony Braxton, all of them, they were kids, and they ended up in terrible contracts.
Sure.
And they had hit records out, and New Edition, I think, said that they didn't receive but $75 a piece for the first hit record that they had, you know? So it's these kind of things that tell us, we question, what could we do? Can we take a bad situation and turn it to a good one? Yes, we can. Because just like you have prepaid legal services and prepaid medical services and all of that, we are setting up all of that for these celebrities where they will be able to get the medical care that they need. they will be able to get health insurance, life
That's
insurance,
wonderful. That's
and
wonderful.
stuff like
Yes,
that,
yes.
you know? That's what we're working on, and that we just recognize as something that is necessary to do, you know? It's absolutely necessary that we look out for these people who actually help to shape our perception of love and our perception of consciousness. A lot of their music was embraced us through a lot of hard times.
Sure,
you know?
sure.
They made it possible
To
for
get over
us.
those hard
That's
times.
right. They made that possible.
They made the engineers.
That's right. In fact, some of them are probably responsible for us being here.
That's right. Yeah, I know Earth, Wind, Fire has Maurice White. You know, I grew up with Maurice White basically, and psychologically adopted him as a professor of music for myself. So, you know, for years I just listened to Earth, Wind, and Fire. You know, it was just, you know, it was just Maurice White and the gang, you know.
Yeah.
So, and a lot of their songs help, you know, when I look back, oh my God.
They absolutely helped me.
Yeah.
Earth, Wind, and Fire is a group that I still don't think this generation or the generations before them really understand the powerful impact, the symbolism, in the message in the Earth, Wind, and Fire's music. But also Gamble and Huff was doing that sort of thing to where it was a conscious era. And it was not uncommon for Curtis Mayfield and even Marvin Gaye to touch on social issues. And I think that the industry, every time we got on the trajectory of waking the people up through music, the industry stopped giving contracts to those who were making that kind of music.
Sure.
And they wanted us to focus more on the sexual, the conflicts in our community, and things like that. So that, for that reason, not only is the beginning parts of a rising star important, but when an artist hits their plateau, that is the most difficult time to get that artist's attention. This will be the last group that will be the ones that will latch on and support celebrities at risk. Because as long as things are going right or appear to be going right, you don't want to rock the boat.
Sure.
And you're just going to go with it, you know. But it's so short-lived that you're sitting there on that pinnacle that all of a sudden when it does change, you might not even know it changed. You know, all of a sudden you ain't being offered nothing no more. It's just like that. However, we also saw that being that we are a non-profit organization that is, you know, tax exempt, it allows for successful celebrities to actually sponsor other celebrities that they feel are at risk. So they can donate to this and receive a tax write-off for donating
That's wonderful.
to this cause. And so in that way, you know, a nonprofit existing for the social good has to recycle all funds back into the program itself. So it's not like a for-profit company
Sure.
where somebody's getting the money and that individual, whoever runs that company, is able to handle that money any kind of way he wants. Nonprofits get audited. So, you know, we love it because it sets up a protection for the future for these artists, even after we're gone, that we want to make a system in place to where, like I said, celebrities who are doing good could come up and say, hey man, listen, I want to write $1 million check. I want you to help as many celebrities as possible.
As possible, yes.
You
yes,
know?
Yes.
And get that tax write-off, but they put it forth. And Alicia Keys, or, you know, somebody like that who, even Steve Harvey, somebody who could appreciate what we're doing and who themselves have been successful. But people who brought them into the business that they've seen fall by the wayside, or they see struggling because of drug use and all that. And if Steve could have a chance to help this person, as opposed to handing this person money every time they come into town at the risk that he might go somewhere and OD, and now it's you feeling responsible that you did that, you're easily able to say, I tell you what, you go into the Celebrities at Risk program for 60 to 90 days. I'll sponsor you,
Sure.
you know, and from there, if you do okay through that program, then man, I'll hook you up and let you come travel with me.
Wow.
Now, so Celebrities at Risk has acquired properties now. It'll probably be another year now because of the pandemic that before we can launch it, but we have already begun to acquire the properties all over the 3 states that we are in. And it's just a matter of time. We even have had, I don't think this had happened the last time I talked to you, we even have the Whispers on board. The Whispers have committed.
That's wonderful.
In fact, the Whispers committed in such a beautiful way that we've had plenty of conversations with their management and them talking about how wonderful they think Celebrities at Risk is, and Whispers agreeing to do a public service announcement for it.
That's wonderful, yes.
And we are now looking into how we can actually set up an online concert with these other groups. The Whispers also said that they would get other groups involved, and they named a number of artists that I had never heard of before as an example, they felt, of great people that the industry destroyed. And
they definitely said the industry destroyed them.
yeah, yeah, they recognized that the industry, some of these people just got a bad deal from the industry.
From the beginning.
From the beginning.
Wow.
And some of them were great singers, they said, great performers. So, you know, if, like with any business, if you see that there's abuse in the business that you're in, then naturally, you know, it breeds a desire to come up with a way in which that can be resolved. And that's pretty much what Celebrities at Risk
It's all about.
is working with.
Okay, well, for the camera, tell people how they can reach out to you.
Well, Prodigal Sons and Daughters, you can reach us several ways. You can go on our website, www.prodigal, PRODIGAL, site, SITE.org. So that's www.prodigalsite.org. That is one way of reaching us. So we're here at 60 Evergreen Place in East Orange, in Suites 904 and Suites 200. Our business number is 862-252-7277.
Okay? And again, this is Zachariah Jackson, Basa News. Good afternoon.
A brother